I have an entire family tree. After playing a little game called CK3, I did use the Game of Thrones mod, so all of this is gonna bear some similarities to A Song of Ice and Fire. There's magic, there's dragons, and also a little bit of incest. I hope you're here for a ride. It's gonna be long. Here's a general list of content warnings since I do talk about some stuff I don't normally talk about. We begin with the originator of this bloodline, Noralia. She is a very powerful magic wielder and becomes the matriarch of this eventual great family dynasty of the Grimoires. I couldn't think of a more interesting last name for a family of magic wielders, so I just chose Grimoires. Moving on, Noralia is quite a mystery. So how did she get her power? Some people are like, was she a servant who took advantage of her lord or lady and just usurped their power? Or maybe she was a peasant and she randomly became super rich. Or maybe she's always been in a position of power. Really no one knows for sure, right? The only thing that is confirmed is that this girl has got some pretty crazy magical abilities, and so no one messes with her. Because there is magic in this, I did end up making the setting of it my D&D homebrew world, K Luna, which you guys have heard plenty about. So eventually there might be some D&D aspects, but for the most part, this will just be about humans. So Noralia is from an island called Elra. It's like a city-state. And I may have just stole this from A Song of Ice and Fire. Anyway, the current mayor of this place is a guy named Valyria. Here's Valyria. He is handsome Squidward because he's important enough to be on the chart, but I'm too lazy to draw him. Somehow, someway, Noralia rises to power and pretty much usurps Valyria's authority. So she has control over the city now, but then she's not satisfied with just being mayor. She's like, you know what? I'm gonna make myself a lady. Okay, I am Lady Noralia now, and you are all gonna be part of my court, and you will be my advisors and all that jazz. And that's how things are gonna be from now on. Okay, she is that bitch. She just created her own title and everyone accepted it. And you know what? She doesn't even stop there. She also decides that this is going to be the beginning of her new territory called the Grim. I know that kind of sounds a little lame. This is going to eventually be a new country, and hopefully she will become queen of it, but she doesn't have that land yet. She only has a singular city, which is Elra. Everyone in the city goes along with it. She's powerful, she's magical. Who knows what else she's capable of, honestly. So everyone is like, okay, we're just gonna go on this wild ride with Lady Noralia. So here's a little geography bit. Elra is actually an island, and it's right next to a giant peninsula called the Great Ruins. Now, remember, I was playing a Game of Thrones mod. This place is pretty much this world's version of old Valyria, okay? So the Great Ruins has monsters and beasts and just dangerous stuff in it, okay? I don't really know because it's not super important. But the thing is, it's also kind of empty. The density of the dangerous things isn't high. People are just too scared to go in there because, they're gonna be like, I'm gonna die if I step foot in this place. Over the centuries, people have tried and failed to claim any territory in there, but Lady Noralia sees the Great Ruins. She's like, I'm gonna do that, and plans to eventually colonize it. She also thinks this is the perfect opportunity to build a new dynasty and hopefully turn my new territory, the Grim, into an actual nation. But before she can do that, she needs to make sure that she has a legacy. So Noralia is like, I need a husband, but not just one husband, two of them. This is where, the Game of Thrones of it all gets a little obvious, okay? So bear with me. Neuralia is thinking, I want to keep my magical blood as intact as possible. I might need to have my kids marry each other if I want that to happen. I have to sprinkle in at least some genetic diversity in there so my kids will have different fathers. She's like, I may force my kids into incest, but at least it'll be like a little less intense than full-on incest. Like, it's that's her logic, okay? It's still bad. Spoiler alert though, I never actually, in my game, married any siblings together. I couldn't do it. Okay, I didn't have the backbone to do it. It felt too nasty. So the most incest that happens here is like distant cousins, maybe a couple aunt and uncle ones. I don't super remember. Okay, the family tree got pretty convoluted. You will see. You will see. So Neuralia goes to this place up north across the sea called the High Coast. And I'll be probably putting on some maps on the screen to help with the geography of it all. This place is pretty much just a bunch of like petty kingdoms that fight each other every now and then. So she travels there and she finds herself 2 husbands. Lonnie from the Radiant Pass and Falrio of Volcana. The thing is, Neuralia is a lesbian, so she goes and finds herself also 2 wives, Alyssa and Laura, who are both locally from the city of Elra. And now we already have 5 people to tackle, which is going to be a lot. Yes, I understand, but bear with me. We will get through this together. I will try my best to distinguish these people. So Neuralia finally has her 4 spouses. They are living in the Great Hall, like town hall, basically, of Elra. But she's like, I am one day gonna be queen. Hopefully, right? I'm not gonna live in just some great hall. I'm gonna build a proper castle, a home befitting a royal, even though she's not one yet, okay? She has 1 city. So she moves her new family and she constructs a castle on the far end of the city. She leaves town hall with Valyria, the guy whose power she low-key usurped, okay? And she also makes him like her number 1 advisor because she at least acknowledges that like this guy kind of knows what he's doing when it comes to like politics. I don't really have a name for like lead advisor, like how, you know, Hand of the King or whatever. So I'm just going to call it lead advisor. So Lady Neuralia is now having court. She's, you know, building this community of people who are like nobles, who are supposed to be helping her out. But turns out she's actually not well liked. She doesn't assert her authority as well as like she thought she did. Really, her court was pretty messy, and the only thing keeping everyone in line was the magic that she held above them. So she knew that her court was kind of like snake-like, all right? Like they might have been out to get her. But she was like, I have my 4 spouses. They are supposed to be my shield against my court. If anyone is like scheming against me or whatever, my husbands and wives are supposed to be here to protect me and be on my side. But low-key, they weren't the greatest spouses. Her husbands bored her. She didn't even really like sleeping with them because she's a lesbian. Lonnie was a pretty quiet guy. They didn't really hang out aside from making babies. And so majority of the time, this guy was pretty uninvolved with everything. He wasn't like a huge player in the game of, you know, court scheming. If this was Game of Thrones, he's kind of the guy who is either super boring or so uninvolved that I actually root for him because I'm like, oh, I hope he lives because he's not hurting anyone. He's not being problematic. He's just chill. Falrio, on the other hand, was a pretty extroverted guy. He was fun, he was exuberant. So I guess I take it back. Her husbands, plural, didn't bore her. It was just Lonnie. Because Falrio was at least interesting to Neuralia as a person. He honestly might have been the only spouse out of the four of them who was trying to entertain her outside of like just pleasantries. Even though in the beginning she wasn't like totally crazy about him, he did end up being her friend. It's just that it was never romantic because, you know, he wasn't her preference. So it was like, oh, like we're actually friends. I actually enjoy your company. In the future, he also becomes very useful to the family because he can fight really well. And so he ends up leading a lot of armies in defense of the island against future wars. And also because of his military knowledge, he ends up raising a lot of the children and teaching them how to fight. Now, her wives were very difficult to deal with. Alyssa was meant to be a bed partner of Neuralia, but turns out Alyssa has no interest in sharing a bed with anyone. Okay, she's not interested in it at all. Neuralia, she's not gonna force it. So instead, she's like, I need to get her loyalty somehow. And so she ends up giving her the Hall of Elra. Neuralia, once again, kicks out Valyria out of power and makes Alyssa the main leader of Town Hall. Valyria is offended at this, obviously, but Neuralia ensures him that he will keep his place as her lead advisor. So she basically relocates this guy to like the castle. Now, Laura, her other wife, was pretty difficult to get along with. I think it's just a matter of incompatible personalities. I guess you could say Laura is very high maintenance. She has a lot of demands for Neuralia, who is an incredibly ambitious woman and is focusing on so many other things instead of trying to like make Laura happy. When Neuralia gifted Alyssa an entire city, Laura saw it as an insult. Like, she was like, what the hell? Why did you give her an entire city? What are you gonna give me? And well, Neuralia didn't give her anything. I mean, I am kind of on her side though, because you can't just give one wife a whole city and then the other wife nothing, you know, even though she does annoy you. You're not helping the relationship, right, Neuralia, Miss Girl? So I have to say that Neuralia is also just kind of a bad partner. I mean, she didn't even do like enough research before picking her wives to make sure that they were actually people who would like her and that she would get along with. Because even though she gave Alyssa a whole ass city, Alyssa doesn't even really care about her. Like, she's not attracted to Neuralia. She's just minding her own business. She's kind of pulling a Lonnie, except it's like full-blown indifference, okay? Like, at least Lonnie has stuff that he likes to do by himself and he will talk to Neuralia when he has to, but Alyssa is just like, can't be bothered. Meanwhile, Laura is probably the type who like won't stop talking to Neuralia, even though Neuralia hates being around her. So now, even Laura decided, I'm not gonna share a bed with you. So, lesbian Neuralia out here has 2 wives. She is not getting any of that cake from her wives, only from her husbands, who she's not really like down skis for that, you know? But hey, she's doing what she has to do for them babies. And speaking of babies, let's talk offspring, let's talk children. Lady Neuralia has 3 kids. Rana with Lonnie, Alice with Falrio, and Alon with Lonnie once more. You would have thunk that she would have more kids with Falrio, but I guess not. So Neuralia was hoping that all of her kids would have her magic, right? Nope, only Alice can innately wield magic. So she's feeling a little disappointed, but she decided it's okay, they'll have their roles to fulfill. Rana, as the eldest, is also the heir. Neralia's idea is to teach Rana to succeed where she failed with her court. Remember, Neralia isn't well liked in her court, so there are probably so many people scheming her downfall, but they're all too scared to commit because of her magic. But Rana doesn't have magic, so Neralia is like, you will be the most intimidating person ever. You will threaten people, you will scare them into submission, you will rule with fear. Because guess what? Loyalty isn't strong enough. On the other hand, Alice has magic though. And I know what you're thinking, but Lauren, why didn't you name Alice the heir if she has magic so that it could live on in the main bloodline? Well, it's because I was too scared to piss off Rana, okay? She was already pretty scary at this point. And when you piss someone off in CK3, they will do something about it. So I didn't want to risk Rana, like, murdering her sister, okay? So instead of being heir, Neralia wants Alice to become a powerful mage just like her and to use that as a tool to help her sister maintain authority over all these people. So the two sisters are like super duper cool, right? Rana's hella scary, Alice is hella powerful. And then there's Alon. He didn't show any signs of magic. He was a very sickly child. And just overall, Neralia didn't see any potential in him. So she decides that his purpose is to be his sister's servant. It's giving Finn from Snow White and the Huntsman, who is like doomed to be his sister's support. But Alon is like super sweet. He is very kind and nice and just really easy to befriend. Even though he is born into a pretty hostile court that kind of like hates his mother, he was still that one kid that everyone liked. Like, there was no reason to dislike him, you know? He just had that effect on people. But he was a very weak child. He would get tired super fast. He didn't have a lot of energy, so he wouldn't really run around a lot. And he would get sick very often. And the moment that Neralia noticed this, she was like, oh shit. Because she knows that it's her fault that her son is like this. Neralia is aware that her magic came with consequences. We don't know how she got her magic, but however she got it came with the price of a weakened body. Neralia didn't really believe it at first because she didn't feel the effects of it, but turns out it can be passed down to her children. So sweet, sweet Alon is cursed with a weak body. Now I know I said earlier that Neralia was interested in pairing her children up to keep the bloodline pure, right? But Alon was not a good candidate here, so thankfully none of that happened. You would think that Alice would be her favorite because she has magic, right? But no, actually most of her attention goes to training Rana as the heir. And then of course, sweet little Alon over there is getting neglected by his mother. Maybe it's the reason why he turned out so nice, honestly, because she wasn't raising him. Instead, he is hanging out more with his dad, Lonnie. Remember, Lonnie is pretty chill. He minds his own business and he's not up to any nefarious activities like everyone else in the court is. So Alon learned how to be a kind person from his father. Meanwhile, Neralia is spending most of her time training Alice and teaching Rana how to be a lady. Neralia prioritized the leadership of the Grimm more than like the magical aspect of it. So she would constantly like tutor Rana and Alice, but more so Rana. And also because of like her difficult spouses, Neralia spent most of her time with her children. Guess who had a problem with this? Laura. Laura starts complaining and starts nagging at Neralia that she was spending too much time tutoring her children and not enough time spending time with like her wife, you know. And Laura starts like going around and like threatening that, oh, if you keep spending too much time tutoring Rana, then I'm not gonna share a bed with you. But then Neuralia is like, what? Like, you already don't sleep with me. So why would I care about that? So it didn't change anything. And it just caused Neuralia to like kind of dislike Laura even more, okay? And because of this, Neuralia is not spending any time with her spouses. And she doesn't notice that Laura and her husband, Valyria, are beginning to get a little closer, okay? So that will be a thing for the future, though. Now that she has children, Neuralia says, okay, besties, it's time to colonize. So she starts launching expeditions to the Great Ruins. In one of them, Neuralia finds a sword, and she names it Arcane. Even though she doesn't even use it, she's a magic girly, not a sword girly. So Arcane just kind of stays on a wall as decoration. And then shortly after she starts doing all of this, Lonnie gets the pox and passes away. He is deaders. Rip Lonnie, you were a chill guy. Nothing was wrong with you. You just minded your own business. Thank you for hanging out with Alon. Rest in peace. So the Great Ruins, very empty, lots of ruins, very dangerous. All Neuralia sees is potential. During the expedition, she goes around and maybe kills some stuff and is like, oh, hell yeah, this is very doable. So then she begins getting a little ballsier. She decides, I'm gonna bring along Rana. You know, little 12-year-old Rana who doesn't have magic and can't really defend herself. Yeah, Neuralia decides to take her daughter with her because she's pulling like a Mufasa and is like, I want to show you all this land that is yours. Even though it's just like not yet. They haven't actually began colonizing yet. They still need to clear some stuff out and make some room. And this was a very unwise choice for Neuralia because they get attacked. By what? I don't know. We'll keep it a mystery because it's a little more interesting that way. Normally, Miss Powerful Sorcerer Neuralia over here is able to fend this off and is able to like, you know, protect the entire group. And for the most part, she is. Just like another day getting attacked in the ruins. But then, somehow, some way, Rana is in direct danger. If one of the monsters had a gun, they are pointing it at Rana and have pulled the trigger and the bullet is on its way. Neuralia jumps in front of her daughter and tanks the attack. And that is the end of her. She was only 37. She really did not live a long life. So the rest of the group, they don't even grab Neuralia's body because, like, why would they do that when they're in a lot of danger? And so they just take Rana and they, like, run and they flee back to Elra. 12-year-old Rana is, like, super traumatized after seeing her mother sacrifice herself. And now she becomes Lady Rana. But she's like 12 years old, so she needs a regent. And there are so many choices here that the court has to consider. There's her stepdad, Valyria, her two stepmoms, Alyssa and Laura. Alyssa is a little bit of like a higher candidate because she's already in a position of power. She already has been holding authority over the city, so some people were thinking it makes sense for maybe her to be regent. Valyria's too impulsive, and Laura doesn't care enough. So let's say they're all like at a table having counsel and talking about who should be regent. And then lo and behold, a diva comes through the doors, and it's Valyria. And he's like, I will be regent. And I don't think anyone really cared enough to be regent, so they just kind of let him. Rana's over here grieving. She's 12 years old. There's this dude who's kind of just been around for like the longest time, so she is already used to him, and so she's like, okay. So Alyssa is probably the one who would have been regent if Valyria didn't do what he did. But she's like, I don't care. I already have my city. What do you rule over, Valyria? The Grim, which is just still Elra? My city? So Alyssa's getting a little arrogant. She starts to say stuff that gives off the impression that she's actually the one in power. And so this gets people whispering about Alyssa, like, oh, she's kind of power hungry. Maybe Neuralia never should have given her the city. Meanwhile, a few years passes in the aftermath of Neuralia's death. Valyria and Laura act on their budding romance, and they get married. Now, this causes also a whole lot of whispers, because people are like, ooh, was there infidelity involved? Or was this actually something that genuinely happened after Neuralia was gone? You know, there's a lot of gossip, right? And even Rana raises an eyebrow at this, because since a few years have passed, she's a teenager by this point, and she's remembering all that her mother taught her. You should listen to the secrets of your court. So she's like, okay, Valyria and Laura, let's see if they're up to any nefarious activities. And she's very on edge because she kind of feels like people are out to get her. And so already at a very young age, she's really leaning into everything that her mom taught her. She's hearing these things about Alyssa being power hungry, and she's low-key getting a little paranoid about like the schemes that people might be pulling. It's time for a new Rana portrait, because now she's scary. She's supposed to be intimidating. She is Lady Rana, no longer a traumatized, scared 12-year-old. She has been digging for secrets. She's had her little birds running around, listening to what people are saying. And she finds out that Valyria, handsome Squidward over here, is a cannibal. Ew. So Rana's like, oh, I know Valyria's dirty little secret. He's been encroaching on my power as my regent. I'm gonna blackmail him. And Valeria's like, oh my god, don't tell anyone I'm a cannibal, please. Here's some power. And Rana's thinking, yes, I did that. Yay me. You know, mom would be proud, right? Some time passes, Rana and Alice are of age now. Rana takes Alice to the High Coast, and she's like, sis, let's look for some husbands. Even though Rana doesn't have the same goal as her mom of like blood purity for magic, she still recognizes the value of having multiple spouses. And so she gets herself not 2, but 4 husbands. Rana did not play around. So we have, on the runway of husbands, Valmain of the Radiant Pass, Egan of Slipshire, Logain of Slipshire, and Pergi of Silverwick. Alice, on the other hand, is like, I don't want a lot of husbands, okay? Like, I'm okay with just one. And Rana's kind of being a little judgmental because she's like, dude, you have magic like our mom. Wouldn't you want to take up the same philosophy with the spouses as her? And Alice is like, no, I don't want to do that. Alice, she's very like, I wouldn't describe her as chill, but more like a little scared of life, I guess. She's a little craven, and she really likes to just keep it safe, okay? Like, she did not develop any ambitious personality traits that her mother had. She just hung out with Alon as well. They were pretty much just like having a great time, having a great childhood with their dads. Meanwhile, Rana was more of like a mommy's girl. They were free from the burden of responsibility. It really gets lost on me, like, why did Neuralia not pay more attention to Alice? I mean, it's my fault. Man, you would have thunk that she would try to shape her more into being like herself, but she really did not. So all these weddings happen, right? Like, Rana probably has a big old wedding in the Grim, in the castle, where she just kind of has her husband's like tag team on the pulpit. And it's like, okay, your turn, your turn, your turn. Meanwhile, Alice had her wedding in the Radiant Pass where her husband lives, and she decides to stay there. I guess she liked her husband a lot, enough to want to like live with him and his family instead of where she grew up. I don't know, it was a CK3 thing, okay? I am not really gonna draw Alice's husband because he was just a minor lord and he really has no place in this story. Maybe I'll find a random picture from SpongeBob. I don't know. So Rana is like, okay, you can stay over there, but I expect you to be having a lot of kids. Because Rana's plan is she's going to have a lot of kids, Alice is going to have a lot of kids, and if there's magical babies in the mix, then she can marry her kids to Alice's kids and engage in some cousin incest. Ugh. Now, Alon is pretty saddened by Alice's departure because, as I mentioned before, they were pretty close as half siblings. Alice would actually hang out with him and like play with him. And when they were young, Alice would say, like, one day I'm gonna find a spell to like fix you up and you're gonna be like as strong as anybody else. And I'm like, oh my god, like she cares for him so much. These two were definitely a lot closer to each other than they ever were with Rana. It makes me feel a little bad for Rana, but not really because I kind of don't like her. Alon is stuck with Rana and is expected to just help her out with everything that she wants him to do. And for the most part, he just takes it. He's like, yeah, bossed me around. This is what mom would want me to do. And I just feel bad for him, like heavy. Like this is not the kind of life that such a sweet boy should have. And to make matters worse, he gets hit by like a really strong illness. And it just like, it sucks the strength out of him. And unfortunately, Alon dies at 18. Rana is over here thinking, wow, I thought he would last longer. But we all knew that this was gonna happen. Like she is not phased whatsoever. And you guys can kind of see why I don't like her, right? R.I.P. Alon, you deserve way better. You would have been a great man if you live longer. Alice is devastated because she was away. She like missed the last few years of her brother's life. The way she finds out too is just like messed up. During her time away, Alice gave birth to a son named Athan, and she's like examining him, and unfortunately she determines that he does not have any of her magical abilities. So she writes up a letter to tell Rana like, hey, I have my first kid. He doesn't have any of mine or mom's magic, but he does seem to be a pretty healthy baby. So she sends that. She gets a very disappointed letter back from Rana, just pressuring her to have more children. She's like, keep trying. We need some magical babies. And then at the bottom of the letter, in very small lettering, is like, BT dubs, Alon died. RIP. And so Alice is devastated. She's in mourning. Unfortunately, though, she cracks under the pressure that Rana is putting on her, and she attempts to have more children. She also does this because she's thinking about what Neuralia would have wanted, and, you know, she still, like, loved her mom. So while Alice is over there trying to have more kids, Rana is thinking about the Great Ruins. She is high-key scared of going over there. She has a huge fear, understandably, and a lot of trauma. So for a few years while Alice is gone, she's psyching herself up to be brave enough to go. And finally, one day, she's like, okay, I have to get over this. It is time to colonize. And for some reason, she's also very adamant about doing this by herself without the help of Alice's magic. Why is that something that she wants? I don't know, that sounds pretty unwise. But anyway, she takes a group and they tiptoe around the shore. She's looking for a place that's good enough to start building, or even just a ruin to restore. Eventually, she finds a nice spot, and then she creates the settlement of Darkdale. And she calls it this because the ground or the land was like dark, I don't know, burnt or something. And then it was also a dale because you see, I'm very creative. Anyway, but you know, none of this happens without any complications, okay? Since Rana was so adamant about not having the protection of Alice's magic, as they're setting up, they get attacked by the mysterious monsters. And then half of her face gets burned. She is now Zuko. So she comes back home triumphant. She doesn't even care that half of her face got burned. She's just happy that she managed to do what her mother failed to do. She did it. She started the colonization of the Great Ruins. In the history books, it will say Lady Rana did that. Now Rana is like, it's time to pump out some kids. So here's the first two, because man, Rana has a lot of kids. First, we have Nara from Valmain, and then second, we have Igor from Pergi. She has her 2 kids. She's already thinking of having more. Rana is thriving. She's accomplished a lot more than her mother has already. Everything is good, right? So amazing. And then her husbands start dropping dead. First, Egan of Slipshire dies. He just like drops dead. We're like, oh my god, was something wrong with his brain? Did he have a heart attack? Like, what happened? You know, like no one knows, right? Then, shortly after the birth of his son Igor, Pergi dies from choking. Like he was just eating, you know, and then choke, dead. Rana at first was like, oh, like I don't really care. I still have 2 other husbands and I can also just replace them, okay? But then her baby, like her newborn baby, Igor, goes missing. No body, no nothing, baby just goes missing. After this, Rana is like, okay, something nefarious is happening, you know, and she's like, I want everybody's secrets. I want to find out who's doing this. But she also needs to recover. So she gets another husband to replace the ones that have died. She marries Leomond of the Radiant Pass. And I mean, if I was this guy, I would be like, I don't really want to marry you. Like, I would have rejected Rana because if I knew that her husbands were dying like flies, I wouldn't want to be a part of that. But I guess he wasn't very wise. But he does marry her. So Rana is like ultra paranoid now because she's like, oh my god, like what's happening? Who's out to get me? And then Logain of Slipshire dies, and she didn't even have a chance to have a kid with this guy. And the way he died, it's gonna get a little graphic. Mutilated parts just scattered around. Some of his parts couldn't even be found. And then all of this is happening all within 1 year. Okay, I mean, like, look at this. These are Rana's memories in the game. It's crazy. And then after, like, Logain's gruesome death, and, like, she saw the crime scene, Rana is sifting through all the secrets that she has, like, in her little journal or binder or however she keeps track of stuff. And she's like, who could be murdering my husbands? And then she like goes all the way to the very first page and she sees the very first secret that she ever uncovered. And it was that Valyria eats people, that he is a sick cannibal. And it all clicks with her. Oh my god. Valyria the cannibal just ate my husband Logain. And, oh my god, he ate my baby. Like, that's why my baby couldn't be found. And she's like, you know, I guess he didn't eat them, but he probably murdered Egan too. And also, he choked Pergia or something. And so she accuses him, she arrests him, and then she executes him. She, like, beheads him and then feeds his head to her dogs. Because apparently Rana had dogs. And so all of this is happening, you know, it's quite intense. People are like, oh my god, like Lady Rana is going off the deep end. I mean, Valyria deserved it, right? But she starts to get like ultra paranoid after this. And some people start whispering, they're like, oh, like she's kind of going mad. Yikes. After the demise of Valyria, Rana can finally breathe a little. And so she has some more kids. We have Veor and Nessa, both with Valmain. In between these two was a failed pregnancy with Leomond. So even after all of that, Rana still couldn't catch a break from misfortune. Across the sea, Alice is also going through it. She unfortunately goes through 2 failed pregnancies, and then her husband dies. Rip. So she sends a letter informing Rana, hey, all this happened. And then she gets one back from Rana that says, that sucks, that your husband died. Been there, done that, haha. And about the babies, also been there, done that. You should come back here then. And then at the bottom, it says, P.S., your dad's dead too. So Alice is out here having a rough time. So, R.I.P. Falrio. Once again, Alice's dad married her stepmother, Laura. It was a nice and happy marriage. It was a lot better than the ones they had with Neuralia, you know? They didn't have any children with each other, but Rana is out here pumping out kids, so there's plenty running around. Falrio would help teach those kids how to fight and stuff. And kind of near the end of his life, there was a couple attacks on the city where he led the defense. So this guy was pretty useful around the Grim, okay? He did work. Now with the others, Lonnie's dead. Laura is obviously mourning her husband, Falrio. She doesn't really do anything notable after all this, though. And then Alyssa has been chilling at town hall. At this point, she has taken in a girl named Gret Nightwillow as her ward. And she's raising her, teaching her the ropes. The Nightwillows are one of the handful of noble families that I made for this whole thing. I'm going to put her on the board because she will become relevant later. Now, Alice takes her son Athan and goes back to the Grim. Being back at home, she's attempting to enjoy life a little bit. Currently, it sucks because Rana is really on her back about having more children. She keeps bugging her to get remarried, and Alice is like, oh my god, I am sick of her. I really wish she would mind her own damn business. So she kind of hatches up a plan. One day, Alice goes up to Rana and she's like, hey, come with me to a tavern in town and let's enjoy what the city has to offer. Rana is like, okay, I need the rest and relaxation. And so at the tavern, Rana starts eyeing up the barkeep. And she's like, oh my god, that guy is super cute. So Alice is like, oh, why don't I introduce you guys? Maybe you'll hit it off. And so she does. And now we have Agathon, the barkeep. At first, Rana just kept him around as a lover. But then at one point, she was like, I think I actually am falling in love with him. And so she marries him. And now we have our sixth and final husband. Lady Rana over here finally pops out her last 3 kids. Oddveth with Agathon, who is the only child out of love. Then Grima with Leomond, and Mondo with Valmain. So these are all her kids now, and clearly Valmain had some strong swimmers. So Alice is like, yes, they fell in love. Maybe that will actually get her off of my back. But Alice's plan to get Rana off of her back actually didn't really work because she was still watching her. Eventually, Alice meets this guy named Voro, who's visiting from Volcana. He's testing the waters out at Elra to see if he wants to live here. Alice and Yoro get close. Rana sees this and she takes advantage of it and she marries them. It wasn't exactly like Alice saying, hey, I like this guy. Maybe I want to remarry and get with him. No, it was literally Rana saw that they kind of liked each other and was like, okay, you two are getting married now. They didn't even get a chance to say no. But Rana's plan worked because she wanted Alice to have more children for the possibility of having a magical child, and Alice eventually gives birth to a son she names Voro, who does end up having magical abilities. So yay, another one with Neuralia's magic. Rana immediately betroths Yoro and her daughter Grima. Cousin betrothal. Rana goes to Alice's room right after she gives birth and holds baby Yoro. And as Alice is watching her hold her baby, she hears Rana doing that thing where, she's coddling the baby and she hears her call Yoro Igor. And honestly, this is pretty sad. Even though Rana really does not pay attention to her kids and she doesn't love them as she should, she still did lose a baby pretty tragically, So Alice witnesses this very human moment from Rana, and I think she really feels bad for her. But Rana starts to feel very aloof after this. You would think that she would kind of get better mentally and emotionally. She's in love. There is a magical baby that, has a lot of potential for the future. And it seems like things are really looking up in both Rana and Alice's life. But then Rana starts to have a downward spiral. She gets very paranoid. She has all these secrets about people that she really isn't doing anything with. And she is like kind of beginning to regret that because she blames herself for all of Valeria's murders. And then she starts to like think about all the murders again. Valerio would have consumed the bodies of the people he murdered. What about Egan and Pergi? Why didn't he eat them? And she starts to put it together. It's because he didn't murder them. He wasn't the one. So she starts to really get into it. And she's like, I think Pergi must have just choked. But Egan was murdered. And so she sends out her little spies, and eventually they get evidence that it was none other than her stepmother, Elissa, who murdered her husband, Egan. For what reason? We don't know. But Rana goes into a rage and attempts to arrest Elissa, but Elissa escapes. She slips out of the Grim and goes somewhere. I don't know. Like, I literally have no idea how she lives out the rest of her life, but she murdered Egan. I don't know why. Maybe she was bored. That seems like an illicit thing to do. Oh, I'm bored. Let me go murder someone. Politically, Rana was also going through some stressful things. Some peasants who lived in Darkdale revolted, and she ended up executing their leader. She also traveled across the seas, and she colonizes the island on the other side of the Great Ruins, and she calls it the Far Isle. Once again, very creative. This place doesn't last very long though, because it's so far away that her control on it like dwindled pretty quickly. The people eventually rebel. She's not really able to do anything about it, and they gain their own independence. And then one day, the servants, they start hearing Rana and Agathon have an argument. And then Agathon becomes like hysterical. He's like begging Rana, and he's saying, don't go, don't go. And all the nosy servants are like, wonder what that's about. Shortly after that, Rana goes to court and she announces that she's gonna go to the Great Ruins alone. And everyone is like, girl, what the hell are you talking about? Like, why would you do that? And Rana is like, no, you guys don't get it. Like, I feel it inside of me. And they're like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I feel an unrest within me that can only be calmed by me going to the Great Ruins alone. You peasants don't get it. I'm special. I am Neralia's daughter. Even Alice is like, I don't know what's going on here, but you're low-key. You got a leak in the attic. But my theory, I'm allowed to have theories even though I'm the one making all this. I think that it's real. Like, I think Rana is not going crazy. I mean, maybe she's gotten a little unhinged over the years, but I think this is actually some sort of magical consequence that she got from Neralia. Neralia acquired her magic through questionable means. She got some messed up constitution because of it, and she died in the Great Ruins. So like maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. What do you guys think? So Rana makes that big announcement. The servants know what was happening with Agathon and Rana's argument now. He was begging her not to do it, but she goes. Rana, at age 36, just 1 year younger than Neralia when she died, she goes alone to the Great Ruins, and she is never seen again. R.I.P. Rana. You were forced to be reckoned with, but not really because you kept people's secrets instead of using it against them. Agathon is so sad. They loved each other. He begged her not to go. He was like, just stay here with me and let's live our lives out together. But I guess their love was not enough for Rana. Alice wasn't really saddened by what happened. I mean, she really hated Rana for a lot of her life. I think in a way she blames her for the babies that she lost because of Rana pressuring her to have more kids even when she didn't really want to. And although their relationship as sisters kind of healed a little bit near the end of Rana's life, it just wasn't enough. Anyway, that was kind of sad. But now that Rana is dead, she leaves behind 6 kids. We are finally moving on to the next generation, and it is about to get messy, y'all. There is a lot of people. On the runway of Grimoire children, we have Nara, the firstborn, Veyor the second, Nessa the third, Odveth the fourth, Grima the fifth, and Mondo the sixth. I can't say this word. The sixth. The last one. And then on Alice's side, we've got Ethan and Yoro. I'm asking you all to lock in, because this isn't just simple Rana and Alice anymore. I'm going to be hopping from person to person, leaving generations, coming back, all that jazz. So, Nara, Rana's daughter. I know the names are confusing, but we are on Nara. She is already of age, so there's no regent debacle like last time. She is simply Lady Nara. Now remember, one of the last things that Mama Rana did was betroth Grima to Yoro. As soon as Nara officially becomes lady, Grima comes running to her and is like, "Hey, big sis, I have a request. Can you break my engagement to Yoro? Because it's not even that I don't want to marry Yoro, it's just that I don't want to marry anybody." Now, Nora, she's very gentle, very nice, complete opposite of Mama Rana. So when Grima comes to her, she's like, "Okay, you don't have to marry anyone if you don't want to." And Grima is psyched. She's like, "Hell yeah." Grima is lucky that she asked her sister instead of having to ask her mother, because Rana would be absolutely livid if Grima asked her that while she was still alive. Grima is one of my favorites. Maybe it's because I low-key named her after my grandpa, my Lolo. His name is Grimaldo. And so I just took Grima. Don't know why I turned Southern. So I just took Grima from him because it's on theme. I'm just gonna cross off Laura because I'm pretty sure she's dead at this point. Now, skip a little bit to the future. Grima is running around. She is free from marriage. Meanwhile, Yoro is growing up. He's absorbing all the magical knowledge that Alice is teaching him. And he is super promising, full of energy, full of life. But then Grandma Neralia's little cursed magical constitution strikes again. When Yoro turns 12, he falls ill. This sickness was sudden and brutal. It sucks the strength out of him, and he does not survive. R.I.P. Yoro. You had so much potential. Once again, Alice is the only one with magic. She is devastated. I mean, her son just died, and he was only 12. And it's feeling like her brother has died all over again. Truly, truly, Alice can never catch a break. I feel so bad for her. I'm just happy that Rana is gone, and she's not around to go to Alice and be like, "Oh, that sucks that your son died. Just get another one." Although Yoro has died, Alice still has another son, Ethan. He doesn't have magic, but he's doing pretty well. He's actually up to quite a lot of stuff. Ever since Alice brought him to the Grim when he was 10 years old, he's been forming a bond with Nessa, his cousin. They are like absolute besties. Ethan also, he develops a crush on his lady cousin Nara. Meanwhile, bestie Nessa over here is getting relentlessly bullied by none other than Gret Nightwillow. Remember her? Alyssa's former ward. Nessa and Gret are hardcore beefing. First of all, I mean, Gret started it, all right? She was the one that started bullying Nessa. And then Nessa started barking back and be like, "This is why you're sick in the head. It's because you were raised by a murderer." Like, it was kind of like that, you know? Like, the person who raised you murdered my stepdad. You suck. It was a lot back and forth like that, all right? And Gret, I mean, I don't even know what she was saying to Nessa, but she, like, for some reason, like, absolutely hated her guts. My theory, though, even though I'm the person who made this, is that Gret was heavily jealous. There's not a lot of noble families around But the ones who are here, there's not a lot setting them apart from even the grimoires. And Gret was probably super jealous that Nessa was being treated as super duper special just because she was a grimoire. And so she started bullying her. And another theory is that she had a crush on Athan, because her and Athan are around the same age range. But Athan over here is super duper besties with Nessa. So that's another reason to get jealous of Nessa. Wild. Anyway, those are just my theories. At the end of the day, I was just going off of what the game was giving me. So I don't really know why she started bullying her. But anyway, Gret's bullying just got worse and intensified after Nessa started fighting back with some venomous words. And then to make matters even worse, of course, everyone at court is taking Nessa's side because she's a grimoire. I mean, she's got a lot of powerful fuel against her, all right? Like, you're raised by a murderer, you suck, no wonder you're sick and twisted, or, you know, stuff like that. Like, no wonder you have violent tendencies. Like, it's very that, all right? So, we're gonna skip a little bit to the future concerning Nessa and Gret and Athan. Because of their beef, Lady Nara is seeing that tension is growing between House Grimoire and Night Willow, and she wants to keep Night Willow as friends. You know, they are a noble family, one of very little in the Grimm, because the Grimm is still very small. And Nara, she's like very much like a mediator. She's not a fighter. She really wants to keep the peace. She's trying her best. So in order to repair the relationship between House Grimoire and Night Willow, Nara marries Athan and Gret. This is a very like major thing, because out of all the male grimoires, the Night Willows didn't want Gret to marry any of Nara's brothers. They wanted Athan specifically. And it's because he's Alice's son. Even though he doesn't have magic himself, the Night Willows are kind of scheming and they're thinking he could still have something dormant in him. And I know this is like supposed to be medieval times, like people aren't supposed to know how genetics work and stuff, but I guess the Night Willows have an inkling. You know who doesn't though is Nara. She doesn't think about this whatsoever. She's like, oh, you want Athan? Okay, you can have him. And Athan is low-key like, no, I wanted to marry Nara. And so Gret is like, hell yeah, I'm gonna have some magical babies with Athan, rubbing her hands together and scheming. And Nessa is upset. She's like, what the hell, Athan? We're supposed to be friends. Why did you marry like my worst enemy? Like what? And he's kind of just like, he's a very kind of like rule follower, like go with the flow type of person. He isn't gonna go against what his lady cousin, who he had a crush on, is telling him to do. He's gonna be like, okay, my lady, I will do what you say. And so he marries Gret, knowing that it's gonna upset his bestie. Their marriage starts with Athan tolerating his wife. Of course, over the years of him being besties with Nessa and Gret bullying her, he did develop a general dislike of her. But as the years go by, Athan develops a relationship with her, and he starts to actually like her as a person. He's thinking like, wow, if you take Gret and you separate her from Nessa, she's actually not that bad. It's a shame that that's not how life works, though, because they are in very close proximity to each other at all times. Now that Gret is part of the family, it gets very, very messy. So eventually, Athan and Gret have a daughter named Lillian. When she's born, the Night Willows are like, no, boo, boo, tomato, 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 because she doesn't have magic like they were hoping for. And they are extremely mean to her. She is like ultra disappointment to them. And I think even the Grimoires kind of catch on to this, and they are also like, boo, Lillian, boo. At least Athan and Gret, as parents, are attentive to her. kind of. Skip to when Lillian is a year old. And you know what? Screw it. It's her birthday. There's a family dinner. Nessa and Gret just start hardcore arguing. 1-year-old Lillian is there like, oop. And Nessa probably brought up like, wow, I wonder where Alyssa is and what she's doing. She's probably out there murdering more people and causing suffering in the world. And everyone is like, oh my God, like brother, like why does she have to bring that up? We're just trying to celebrate Lillian's birthday. And then Gret is like, you know what? I'm sick of you. You're ugly. You're disgusting. I'm gonna kill you. Give me $200. And then Nessa is like, see, you're just like Alyssa. No wonder Lillian doesn't have magic. It's because she's tainted by your blood. And then Gret grabs a knife and slashes Nessa in the face. Okay. And everyone's like, whoa. Ethan grabs Gret and is like holding her back from doing any more damage. Nara is like, oh my God, like what is going on? Lillian is crying. Nessa is alive, but her face is scarred forever. And then she's like, starts yelling at Nara. It's like, yo, like do something, sis. You're the lady. You gotta do something about that devil spawn or whatever, you know? So like Nara stands up and she's like, I know what I have to do. To the dungeons. And Ethan is like, no, wait. Lillian just turned a year old. She needs her mother there to, you know, be a role model, I guess. And Nara is like, bro, no, like Gret needs to go chillax because she didn't have to pull out a knife and permanently damage my sister's face, you know? Like, remember? She's your best friend. So, like, maybe you should care more in this situation. And because it came from Nara, who Ethan is a huge simp for, he actually goes to Gret and is like, tone it down, girl. Like, tone down your hostility. So, after all that, Gret gets sent to the dungeons for like a month. Fast forward once more, Ethan has a second daughter with Gret named Rune, and everyone is like, hell yes, because she has magic. Alice was able to tell when she was a couple months old. And so when this discovery happens, there is a family feast to celebrate, you know, magical baby, woohoo. And then Gret goes up to Nessa during the feast and is like, oh, so I see you're real quiet now about my blood, huh? And then Nessa's like, I don't care, you're still a violent freak bitch and you're ugly. And then Gret is like, oh, I'll show you violence. And then she grabs a butter knife and slashes her face again. And I guess Nessa has like really bad reflexes or something, because how could you let Gret do you like that a second time? But she doesn't let her get away with it. She was like, I challenge you to a duel, bitch. Let's see how this plays out. You see, Nessa has some confidence in her fighting abilities. And she's like, step grandpapa Valyria taught me how to fight. So the Grimm is very gender equality when it comes to fighting and war and stuff. So like the girlies can fight, okay? So this challenge goes down and Nara is like, yo, I didn't think it would come to this. You guys just need to chill and like calm down. But Nessa is like really egging Nara on and is like, sis, please let me do this. Like for once, I just want to beat her up. But Nara's still thinking it over. Maybe I should just throw Gret in the dungeons again. And then Simp Ethan comes up to her and is like, no, like you can't do that again. Last time Lillian was 1 year old and this time Rune is only like 2 months old. Like you can't take her mother away from her. You can't do that, please, Nara. So Nara is like, okay, maybe it's what they need to get it out of their systems. So Gret shows up. And she is like, oh, so you thought you were the only one who could fight? Turns out Gret is actually a skilled fighter because Alyssa herself taught her how to fight. And I mean, Alyssa's a murderer, so she knows how to cause some harm. And so they fight and Gret beats Nessa up. Let's just say she gets way more scars than just a couple butter knife ones on her face, okay? She lives though. Gret doesn't kill her because she knows that that would actually like probably get her executed. So she doesn't do that. But she does specifically aim for Nessa's face in the duel because she wants to do as much visual damage as possible as like, I don't know, proof that she did that. So everyone is hoping that this is the end of Nessa and Gret fighting. Nara goes up to Nessa and is like, you can't even blame me for allowing the duel to happen because you just lost like authentically. And then Ethan also goes up to her and is like, you gotta just take the L. You just have to accept that you lost to my wife and like move on, like stop. And then he goes to Gret and he's like, honestly, I'm kind of sick of you. He's not even really picking a side here. He is quite sick of both of them. He just wants to raise his daughters in peace and not have to deal with either of them. So after all this, Ethan doesn't have any more children with Gret because he really, he doesn't F with her anymore. This is very disappointing to both the Night Willows and the Grimoires. Now that there's confirmation that Ethan can produce magical bebés, they want more of them. But Ethan is like, nope, not doing that anymore with Gret. And lastly, there was some people in court who were like, Gret just assaulted the daughter of Lady Rana. She should be beheaded or something or executed because a lot of them are kind of missing the chaos of Rana's reign right now. They're like, oh, I need some entertainment. I need to see a public beheading or something like that. But ultimately, Gret is protected because she is the mother of the only magical baby around. Now, before I forget about them, let's cover Nara's husbands. Since Nara was already of age when Rana died, she pretty much immediately started looking for husbands. And she's gonna do the same polygamy thing that her mother and grandmother did. She goes to the High Pass and she starts scouting people out for like what they could contribute to the Grimm. And she finds this guy named Gideon from Silverwick because he is super duper smart. He becomes her first husband and she tries to have babies with him. And then she has her first son named Mal. And after that, Gideon goes up to her and he's like, hey girly, actually I'm bisexual. And sexuality is a spectrum. And although I like to sleep with some women, I don't really like sleeping with you. So Gideon keeps his distance, at least in the marriage bed. So Nara is like, well, what the heck? And she goes to the High Pass once more and she finds another husband. She meets Vitale of the Radiant Pass and he is a politician. So she's like, okay, he already has like experience with politics and running things. So that's already a plus. Vitale is also a very like exuberant man, kind of similar to Valyria. And she's like, oh, like he's very entertaining and interesting. He looks like he would make a good friend as well. And so she goes up to him and she does what Naralia failed to do. Nara asks Vitale after her experience with Gideon, are you into women? Are we gonna have problems having kids? Because that's what I need from a husband, like, as well, And Vitale, he's like, I'm actually gay, but the whole children thing won't be a problem. Trust me. Because Vitale is a politician, right? Even though he prefers the sexual company of men, he knows the value of a dynasty. And so he's like, if you marry me, I'm gonna make sure that I give you children. It's not gonna be a problem. Like, I can still do my duty, okay? You just have to let me have a little side piece to keep me entertained. She's like, oh, like, no problem, like, as long as we can have kids and as long as you can be useful in my court. And so Vitale is like, all right, like, we have a deal. And then they get married. Immediately, Vitale is like, hell yeah, because now he's a lord. He's not just some minor politician from the High Coast anymore. He's like, oh, I'm Lord Vitale of the Grimm, and I'm gonna make sure my name goes down in history. And he's also very competitive. So he sees Gideon, who's just minding his own business, pulling a Lonnie, and he's like, yeah, that's good. because I don't need some dude getting in the way of what I got going on right now. Fast forward to the future, Vitale helps Nara pop out 4 kids. There's Arletta, Deacon, Ornella, and Arma. At the point where we are in time, though, they're not really supposed to exist yet, so just ignore them for now. We're going to pivot over to Agathon, who I've barely talked about, but we're going to get into who his son is. Agathon is really the only interesting husband that Rana had. There were rumors that the only reason she married him was because she got pregnant with his child and she needed it to be legitimate. But other people whisper that she really did love him and that's why they married. And you can choose what you want to believe. He's described to be very beautiful, which is why Rana was instantly charmed by him the moment she walked into that tavern with Alice. And when she married him, he was pretty shaken by the change in lifestyle. He felt very out of place, but over time he integrated himself into the court and he started kind of working for the family, assisting here and there wherever he could. And I think Rana definitely fell in love with him first, despite all that was happening in her life. And eventually he started to love her too. He pretty much acted as her anchor during her descent into being an unhinged person. And even though she's very scary and stern, I think he definitely brought out the softer side of her. And he's known to be the only person that really had this effect on Rana because she wasn't like that even with her kids. The only other person who'd ever seen her kind of be soft was Alice when Rana was holding baby Yoro. And it's just very sad that the love and bond that Agathon had with Rana wasn't as strong as whatever magical compulsion it was that she felt to go to the Great Ruins. He didn't matter enough to stop her from essentially walking into her death. Now, the only child who was born out of their love was Odveth, their son. This is where I jump into the nitty-gritty details of the sibling dynamics of Rana's kids. If we look here, everyone except for Odveth and Grima have the same dad. Odveth and Veor did not get along very well. They would constantly have shouting matches all over the castle and everyone can hear it. And Lady Nara over here is having to just keep the peace and has to deal with all the fights that her family is having. While Odveth and Veor are constantly arguing, Gret and Nessa are out here fighting every dinner. It's a whole mess. Whenever Odveth and Veor would get into an argument, they always go to Nara and ask her okay, who do you think is right? And every single time, Nara always goes against Odveth. So he would always get butthurt and he'd always say, you're only siding with Veor because he's your full brother and I'm only your half brother. Notice how I didn't say that she sides with Veor because she doesn't. So when Odveth pulls his butthurt thing out, Nara is like, hold on, you're misunderstanding me. I'm not siding with Veor. I'm just saying you're wrong. But don't start feeling bad for him because Odveth was still kind of a nasty person. So because Nara is having to deal with a lot of shit, okay, she would be very stressed and her coping mechanism is to snack. Ever since they were young, even though Nara is way older than Odveth, he would always tease her about her snacking. And it's like, bro, what's your problem? And when Nara gave Grima permission to refuse marriage, Odveth started going around saying, oh, well, no one would want to marry her anyway because she's too wild and she's too picky anyway. And Grima would be like, I'm just over here minding my own business. Why do you have to say something about me? He would make fun of Nessa anytime that she would get injured by Gret because he would be like, girl, how do you keep losing so much? Okay, I'm kind of with him on that one though, because come on, Nessa. But the most annoying thing that he would do is boast that he is Rana's favorite child, since he's the only love child that she had with Agathon. And he'd always go around and hold this above his half-siblings. This is probably why he and Veor absolutely hate each other's guts, why they're always at odds. Odveth would always be like, Mom loved me more than you, haha. And Veyor would be like, dude, Mom didn't love any of us. Like, let's be real. She didn't love any of us to want to stay here and live. So clearly you weren't the favorite. Clearly she didn't even like you that much, 'cause she barely held you. She barely held any of us. She probably paid more attention to Yoro than any of her actual kids. But Odveth would always be like, no, like she loved me. She loved me so much. And Odveth is that one dude who would always remind them that they are half siblings any chance that he gets. And ever since they were young, he'd always tell them like, oh, you guys like each other more because you're full-blooded siblings. We don't have the same dad, so you don't like me as much. But the thing is, his siblings would be like, that's not the case. Whenever he would bring that up, Veyor is always the one to snap back and be like, what the hell are you talking about? We like Grima and she's our half-sister. We just don't like you because you're irritating. He had this insecurity that he just kept projecting and then it became real. Like, I don't want to blame a child, right, for like having an insecurity, but unfortunately it spiraled into something out of control. Because in adulthood, nobody likes Odveth. Nara doesn't like him, Veyor doesn't like him, Nessa doesn't like him. Grima, she's like just kind of doing her own thing. And then the only sibling who really stands completely neutral on Odveth is Mondo. And that's because Mondo straight up doesn't care about anything, okay? He is very indifferent to everything that is happening in the family. Even his dad doesn't like him. Agathon, he's like, nope, I'm on Nara's side. He is very loyal to Lady Nara. And maybe that's why Odveth is always throwing around that his mom loved him more than everyone else. Because clearly his dad doesn't. Like, Agathon doesn't really seem like a good dad. Because if he was, Odveth would not have turned out this way, right? The only person who really takes Odveth's side is Vitale, Nara's husband, the gay icon himself. And that's just cause he likes to play devil's advocate. Whenever Odveth is like, yeah, mom loved me and like she didn't care about any of you except for me, Vitale says, yeah, you're right. Yeah. And Nara would just say, what do you mean you don't know what was happening when we were kids because you weren't here yet? And Vitale is like, I think it's funny to agree with him, so I'm gonna do it. Veyor is the first one to call Odveth the black sheep of the family. As the outlier in all of the siblings, Nara thinks that it's best for Odveth to be as far away as can be. Here's the very abrupt reminder that we are in a D&D world and there are more than just humans out here. I, at one point, forgot as well. An elven princess starts corresponding with Nara and tells her, I want to keep good relations between my nation and the Grimm. Send me one of your brothers to marry. Nara is like, oh, this is the perfect opportunity to get rid of Odveth. And so she does. She goes and she sends him off to marry an elven princess. He jumps at the opportunity because he's like, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to be a prince. You're just going to be a lady. I'm going to be a prince. And he's like, you know, bye, suckas. So the brother that everyone hated is now gone. Not forever, though. So stay tuned for the return of Odveth. So now, Nara is thinking about what to do with her other brothers. Nara corresponds with a lady from Zelmane, another one of the territories in the High Coast. She arranges a little date between the lady and Veyor. He ends up disappointing this woman because he doesn't show up. Nara is very lenient though with her family. She's not controlling like her mom was. So she's like, fine, I'm not gonna force you to marry her, but you have to marry somebody, okay? So Veyor goes to the High Coast and stays there for a bit looking for somebody to marry. He ends up vibing it up with a commoner woman named Valiona from Slipshire. So he brings her home and then they get married. They stay married for a very long time. like 34 years. They were super loyal to each other. I don't think there was love, but they definitely had a lot of respect for each other. They only had one baby who was a stillbirth, and then no kids after that. So marrying commoners isn't really such a big deal in the Grimm because it isn't a huge territory. The reason why they have to go to the High Coast to find spouses is because there's not a lot of nobility around. And the noble families that I did make are still growing. Like, they don't have a lot of people in them, okay? And also, it's only the head of the family that engages in polygamy because that's how the game worked. I couldn't do that with anybody else. Thank God, because I don't know if I would be able to handle everybody like having 4 spouses, okay? Like, that's too much. Some more things about Vayor before we move on is that he is very calculating. He has quite a temper too. And of course, he is Odvet's biggest hater. And because of Vitale's habit of being the only person to side with Odveth, Vayor didn't like him. Oh wow, Vayor not getting along with a brother-in-law, how surprising. Vitale doesn't care one bit though. The only other notable bond that he has is with Laverna Nightwillow, who is Gret's niece. They got along very well at court, and they develop a very long-lasting friendship. She even sends him her daughter to be his ward. And I know it sounds a little suspicious, but I swear they were just friends, okay? Don't be weird about it. Nothing happened. Now we're gonna go back to Grima. She started out very energetic, excited to be free and not having to get married. Eventually though, she got bored. She goes to Nara like, hey, maybe I changed my mind. I'm feeling kind of lonely now, so maybe I do want to marry someone. It's just that I haven't found the right person yet. And I need some help with that. So can you match me up with some people? So Nara gets to work. There's this big shot lord in Silverwick who's had an interest in Grima. She travels there, stays for a couple weeks. At first, in her letters to Nara, it seems like she didn't dislike him. It said, oh, I kind of like it here. He's not that bad. He seems nice. But by the end of the 2 weeks, her letters are kind of seeming like she's pretending to hate it there. She changed her mind. So Nara checks up with the Lord and says, yo, what's happening with Grima? Does she seem happy there? Or is she actually not having a good time? Because she used to tell me that you were nice, but now she kind of doesn't care about you. And the guy is like, oh, I mean, she seems perfectly fine. Maybe she can just grow to like me. Maybe we can still get married. But Nara is like, nope, I'm not gonna have her marry somebody that she's not sure of. So Grima comes home. If you ask me though, I think she got some cold feet. When I was reading these pop-ups in the game, it really seemed like she was beginning to like it there and like him. And then suddenly there's like a switch up. And so I think that she got scared of the commitment. Or I don't know, maybe the guy's actually a big creep and that's why she doesn't like him. But hey, she is a girl who wants to be 100% sure about her partner. So Nara tries again and sets her up with the current lord of Darkdale. Darkdale is the very first colony of the Grimm. You know, the one where Rana got her face burned at. So Grima and the Lord, they have dinner. Well, apparently Grima was so rude and unfriendly that the guy got so irritated at her and kicked her out before dinner was even over. So Nara is like, sis, what are you doing? You asked me to help you, but you're not even being cooperative. Do you want to find a boo or not? Nara gives up. She's tired of her sister's shenanigans, so Grima goes back to living her single life in her 20s. But once she turns 30, she randomly goes up to Nara, has a guy with her named Ken from the Radiant Pass. And she's like, I want to marry him. And Nara is like, what? Are you sure you like him? And Grima is like, yes, I really, really like him. Like, I think I love him, sis. And so by this point, Nara has a bunch of kids. She's tired. She's stressed. So she gives them her blessing and she's very happy for Grima and is very relieved that she finally found her one true boo. Now on to the last sibling before I jump into everything that Lady Nara did in her life. I've been saving it because she was up to a lot. We have who I call the forgotten brother of Lady Nara. Mondo was too young to have gotten to know Rana before she died, so he really got to grow up on his own. He was over his family. He was very apathetic, didn't care about Oddveth or all the drama between Nessa and Gret, didn't blink an eye when Rune, the magical baby, was born. He was sick of this place, so one day he slipped out and left, disappeared into the world. Bye. No one knows what happened to him. Honestly, kind of a shame because I was looking forward to seeing what kind of messy shenanigans he would add to this generation of siblings. But I guess the fact that he literally just disappeared also adds to the chaos of this family. So, with his assumed death, R.I.P. Mondo. I hope you found something to care about. Alright, now we are finally going to focus on Lady Nara. Okay, so I know I am hopping around, time traveling, fast forwarding, going back in time, but we're gonna go back to when Nara is about 23 years old. By this time, Oddveth is gone. She's had her first son Mal with Gideon, and she has her first daughter with Vitale. Arletta is about 2 years old here. Remember how near the end of her life, Mama Rana lost the territory of the Far Isle to independence. Well, Lady Nara starts sending people over there, and she takes it back. Yay! Maybe she sent Alice over there to scare them and be like, ooh, magic. I don't know. Speaking of Alice, she is thriving. She's formed a very close bond with her nieces, Nara, Nessa, and Grima. And she's having a very good time helping raise Rune and teaching her the ropes. And also, I guess she sometimes hangs out with Lillian. Enough about Alice. Got sidetracked. We go back to Nara. We already know about her 2 husbands. Now it's time to learn about the third. So I don't super know what was happening around this time. For some reason, Nara finds herself going to Zelmane a lot and kind of like negotiating with lords and ladies. And so she finds herself visiting the courts of Zelmane. In one of those courts, she meets this guy named Whitford. He was a cupbearer and she kind of thought he was cute. So she begins chatting it up with Whitford and they start kind of hitting it off. But she doesn't really like make a move because she's not really looking for a third husband right now. So she's here on business. She starts walking around Zelmane and then she keeps running into him. And then they naturally just start talking to each other. They hit it off and they fall in love. And Nara is trying to be like smooth with it. And she's like, hey, like, do you want to come back with me to the Grim? You know, I'll show you around. You can visit. And Whitford is like, okay, let's do that. And they essentially start dating. Like, they're not married yet. There is a lot of back and forth from the Grim and Zelmane. Vitale, he starts to get a little worried, not because he's jealous, but because he's very protective over his position as favorite husband. Because at this point, Gideon has very much like, he's MIA, okay? He doesn't really hang out with Nara, which is why they only have one son. And Vitale is trying to do the work in order to have more children with her. And he can't exactly do that if she's falling in love with Whitford. Nara is getting all like shy and nervous and stuff. And she's like, I don't know if I should ask him to marry me. Like, I don't know if he wants to marry me. And she's very like giddy whenever she thinks about him. Clearly, Vitale doesn't want her to. He's trying to be strategic and he doesn't want to go and tell her like, oh, you don't need another husband. You already have me. Because he's thinking, oh, that might just make me suspicious. She's gonna be like, why do you want me to not find love? And he doesn't want her to think like he's trying to sabotage her life. He just wants to ensure that his kids are the ones who matter in this dynasty, even though he already missed the opportunity of having one of his kids be her successor. I mean, I guess he could still go murder Mal, but I don't think Vitale works that way. So he's very much almost doing reverse psychology, or trying to get her to maybe realize that she doesn't like him as much as she thinks she does. So he would ask her, are you sure you like him? Stuff like that, but he's just really scared of sabotaging himself as well. But one day, she's like, you know what? Like, who cares? I am a freaking lady. I can have me a third husband who I actually love. So she asked him to marry her. Now, Whitford, he was up to some stuff in his life in Zelmain. So he is mainly a cupbearer. I guess he's not fully a commoner, but he's also not like high up there in nobility either. In his youth, he came upon a cave, and in this cave was a dragon who was very injured. So he kind of had a how to train your dragon moment, and he formed a bond with her. And it's really like a how to train your dragon moment because she let him ride her. And eventually, Whitford names her Aldi. Yes, like the grocery store, Aldi. I don't know why. I vividly remember changing this dragon's name to Aldi. I think it was kind of similar, and then I just deleted some letters. So now we have a grocery store as a dragon. So Aldi and Whitford, they are like besties. The dragons in this world, they pretty much operate like the ones in Game of Thrones. They can't speak, but they are highly intelligent, like the dragons in D&D, okay? So Whitford, he kind of kept Aldi a secret. He didn't parade her about for respect and fear, and he pretty much just treated her as a friend. So Aldi is not very hostile towards humans, but she's not overly friendly either, so she pretty much only hung out with Whitford. This earns him the title of our very first dragon friend. Now, saying it out loud, it feels a little silly, but that's what I called them when I was like writing this stuff down. Now, even before knowing about Aldi, Nara was really into him. So she is definitely not taking advantage of this guy. She is fully in love with him. She asked him to marry her. And he's like, well, I gotta tell you about something real quick though. And he's like, so I have this dragon friend named Aldi. She is kind of the only dragon around, and she doesn't really have friends, and like I'm kind of her only friend, so she has to come with me if I'm gonna move over there to the island of Elra. And Nara is like, what do you mean you have a dragon? And Whitford's like, no, I don't have a dragon, I just know one. He's basically asking Nara, can I have a +1, who is Aldi? So Nara is like, I mean, okay, like I can't say no to a dragon. Like, what am I gonna do? Tell the dragon that no, you can't come over? So Whitford earns a little bit of style points, and he rides Aldi across the sea to the Grim instead of riding in the ship with Nara. Vitale sees this, and he's like, oh shit, this guy is kind of cool. I'm gonna have to step my game up. Now we have our third husband, Whitford, and our first dragon. So Whitford and Nara's marriage was a calm one. It was made of genuine affection. Nara is also generally not a lustful person. In game, she got the chaste trait, even though she very much isn't, because she is getting down and dirty with Vitale. But with Whitford, they very much have a relationship like outside of the bed, and they enjoy each other's company outside of it. So upon the arrival of Whitford, Vitale feels a little threatened, like his security as a husband, because he's like, well, my job was to give her kids, like a lot of them, and I don't know if I'm really going to be able to do what I need to do with her if she's over here super duper in love with this guy. So Vitale's like, I gotta step up my game. And so he really like gets into Nara's good spirits, and well, I guess it worked because as we know, Nara, even after getting married to Whitford, pops out 3 more kids with Vitale. And so in total, we have Arletta, Deacon, Ornella, and Arma, all consecutive, by the way, with Vitale. After those kids, finally, Whitford gets his turn. She has one son, born of love, whose name is Chip. Don't ask me why his name is Chip. Everyone has pretty normal names, and then there's Chip. At this point, there was so many babies, I needed something memorable, and so we have Chip. Sometime before that, Aldi laid a clutch of eggs. Whitford goes to Aldi and does that dog and cat thing where they're like, hey, look what I made. Here's my bebe. Aldi's eggs eventually hatch, and one of them becomes besties with Chip, and he names him Potato. So now our dragon friends are some guy and his favorite grocery store, and then a bag of chips. The dragons here operate a little differently from the ones in Game of Thrones. They aren't weapons that the humans can control willy-nilly. They are literally just dragons that these people happen to be friends with. And with the dragon friends, they are just people who happen to have befriended a dragon. And also the dragons aren't like only able to bond with a single person. They can have more friends, and it really just depends on the dragon. People on this side of the world don't really know how dragons work, so they wrongly assumed that only Whitford's bloodline can be buddy-buddy with the dragons, even though that's not the case. Everyone else was just too scared to go near the dragons. Anyway, enough talk about dragons. I feel like I'm not making any sense, so let's move on. Let's establish some very early sibling dynamics. The fact that Chip was very obviously Nara's favorite child caused a lot of tension. She doted on him, fawned over him. Meanwhile, the others all have the same dad, except for Mal, I guess, who is Gideon's son. But the other siblings kind of forget that half the time. And they're like, yeah, Mal's one of us. But Chip is treated as the stray addition. It's very obvious that he is special. It's not like an Oddveth thing where he lies and claims that he's the favorite. No, Chip knows he is. He's friends with Potato, Nara pays extra close attention to him, and his dad is the favorite husband. He can actually say that Mom loved him the most, because it's true, and everyone knows it. Chip is living the life that Oddveth wishes he had. And well, because of all this, Chip kind of grows up with a superiority complex. Off the bat, Deacon likes to tease Chip that he is the favorite child. It's almost like the opposite of Vayor and Oddveth, where Vayor would get mad at Oddveth and be like, no, you weren't. Deacon will go to Chip and it's like, oh, we all know that you're Mom's favorite. Here comes the favorite, blah, 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 blah. Like, you know, stuff like that. And even though Chip knows it's true, because it's coming from Deacon, it kind of pisses him off. And at this point, Chip looked like this. So I was starting to get a little concerned that he was gonna be a little unhinged. But it's okay, he has a dragon named Potato. Surely he'll be fine. Surely we shouldn't be concerned when Chip sees Neralia's sword arcane on the wall and asks his mommy if he can have it. Surely it'll be okay that she said yes. Now Deacon, he's kind of a little shit. He's very annoying. He not only teases Chip, he also teases everybody else. He'll go up to Mal and be like, oh, so like you're gonna be king, right? So like, are you gonna be a better king than Mom? Or are you gonna be a worse one? I think you're probably gonna be a worse one. Deacon is also bisexual. He was tall, he would work out, big muscly guy. He would sleep around really without care. Surely that won't become a problem in the future. Mal is very chill, just like his dad. He's giving oldest child who can't be bothered by anything else because he's too busy training to become the next king. He really does not get caught up in any drama. Honestly, he's kind of boring because of this. Arletta is a very inquisitive child. She's that one kid that is always asking inappropriate questions like, how are babies born? How are babies made? And she's also that one kid who embarrassingly would point out people's like disabilities and be like, why are they like that? You know, like she is an inquisitive soul. You kind of just want her to shut up most of the time though. She would probably ask, how come mom loves Chip's dad, but she doesn't love our dad? And then Vitale would be like, oh, like she loves me in her own way. And then she would ask Vitale, well, do you love her? And then Vitale's like, no, but it's complicated. And then she goes, is that why you have a lot of side pieces? Because you don't love mom? And Vitale's like, well, we have a deal. Your mom lets me do it. And then Arletta gets it in her mind that, oh, because mom lets dad do that, she would probably let me do that. And that will come back up in the future. Ornella, the middle child, is giving the vibe of Theo from Haunting of Hill House. And she's a lesbian like her too. She doesn't revel in life like her dad does. She's kind of heartless, kind of insensitive, and she's a very pessimistic person. She's giving buzzkill. Early in her life, kind of like Grima, she tells her parents that she doesn't want to get married. Nara, as always, is fine with it. But Vitale says, what do you mean, Ornella? You're gonna grow up and you'll marry a nice man and have a lot of kids with him. And she goes, but I don't like men. I don't swing that way. And Vitale tells her that that doesn't have to stop her, because it didn't stop him from having a family. But Ornella is very set. She doesn't want to marry, and she isn't budging. This damages her relationship with her dad, because he really wants his kids to have kids so that his bloodline will continue on in history. He decides he doesn't like her because she's stuck up and she's a failure of a daughter who isn't going to contribute to his legacy. Ornella doesn't care. I kind of love her. She was one of the very first ones that I drew. I just loved her character so much I had to draw some fan art even before I knew I was going to make this video. Arma, the second youngest, is very shy. She is quiet, and because of this, she would get bullied by some of the other noble children. I hate them for doing that to her. None of her siblings really defend her. Deacon is probably a prime bullier. So is Chip, because her and Chip are very close in age. Life just kind of sucks for Arma. From all the bullying, she became frightful and cowardly. She's very anxious. She tried her best to stay away from any sort of danger. Grand Auntie Alice notices Arma. She sees herself in her a little bit because Alice, having a sister that is as scary as Rana, she was also pretty craven. Her mom had a lot of expectation for her, but Alice isn't a very ambitious person. She is just here to live life. So Alice goes to Nara and is like, hey, I can take Arma under my wing and take care of her as my ward. She can hang out with my granddaughters away from the people who bully her. Nara agrees, so Arma has been hanging out with Alice. I don't think she's that psyched about it though, because she's kind of scared of magic. During her time under the tutelage of Alice, she avoided magic at all costs. She avoided Rune because she didn't want to be around that. And I guess she kind of befriended Lillian because they related to each other, since Lillian was a disappointment of the family and she also didn't like attention. Despite all of this, all of her cautiousness, during a feast, there's an accident. She gets slashed on her face or something, and she got a bunch of scars on her face. Like, I don't know what happened. Did knives fall from the sky? Truly don't know, but the game just throws these kind of events at you, and I'm like, what the heck? Ever since that, Arma seldom attended feasts, because, I mean, I would do the same thing too. I'd be like, I don't know what's gonna happen to me if I go. She starts wearing a patch over her eye to hide how her scar makes her permanently squint. Even though she herself deemed it necessary to have, she really hated the eye patch because she thought that it made her stick out like in a crowd. Out of all the siblings, she has very black hair. Everyone else kind of has dark brown. And then she has a glum demeanor because of her eye patch, and she would also kind of brood a little bit. All of this combined makes people call her the Black Grim because she looks like as if she just survived death. Arma is one of my favorites. That's where I'll stop for now, but there will be more on her later. In the midst of all this, Nara has been sending people on expeditions to the Great Ruins, and she gets 2 more territories. We have the Pass, which is that little bit of land that connects the peninsula to the rest of the mainland, and they build a castle there called Nara's Gate. The people who she puts in charge of protecting Nara's Gate and the pass become the noble house of the Keepers because they are the keepers of the pass. Some people also travel to the South Shore and create a colony named Dwen. I don't know where this name came from. It's kind of weird and I kind of struggle to say it. The people Nara puts in charge of Dwen is none other than the Night Willow family. And guess who is the head of it? Lady Laverna Night Willow. Not Gret, because Gret is technically part of the Grimoires because she married into it. So Veyor is, I guess, besties with a lady now. Maybe he had a hand in vouching for Laverna and being like, hey, you should appoint my bestie to be in charge of Dwen. Oh yeah, and I forgot to say, since we're talking about it now, the noble family that is in charge of Darkdale is the Darkbanes. And then over there on the far isle is the Gilgarons. So Nara has a total of 4 settlements in the Great Ruins. And also she has the city of Elra, which has already been doing pretty well, like economy-wise. And she is very rich. She has a castle. She's been doing a lot of negotiations with lords and ladies over in the High Coast. So Lady Nara has a pretty good reputation. So she decides, I should make myself queen. So she does. She creates the official nation of the Grimm. So I guess we are the queendom of the Grimm now. She's Queen Nara. During her coronation, Ornella, she is bossing the servants around like, hey, put those flowers here, put that pillar there. And then she also starts to nag her mom. Hey, why did you tell them to put that one there? It looks ugly. It should be over there instead. And Nara is like, why are you bossing me around? I'm about to be queen. And then Ornella bites back and she's like, well, I'm about to be a princess. So get used to it. And Nara's like, what? And that is pretty much the summary of Nara and Ornella's relationship. Ornella is very bossy. She is very entitled. And Nara, she doesn't really do anything about it. She just kind of lets her be. So it's coronation time. Everyone is like, okay, who's gonna crown her? And Nara is like, well, Whitford, of course. Vitale is offended. He's like, what do you mean? Of course. I am an option too. Oh yeah, and Gideon is dead by this point. I forgot to say. He died in his sleep. R.I.P. Gideon. You were a chill dude. Okay, so back to the coronation. Vitale is like, well, you know, I could have crowned her too. But Nara is like, but I love Whitford. So he's gonna crown me. And Nara can tell that Vitale is a little butthurt. And so she compromises by saying like, well, you can crown Whitford and then I will crown you because you guys are my king consorts now. And so like you need crowns too. I don't know. Now that Nara is queen, she's getting a lot more attention from possible enemies. There's a place north of the Great Ruins called Moth's Hell, and they are kind of engaging in slavery, and they wish to attack and pillage the island of Elra and enslave them. So they attack. Their defenses are Alice and an army that was trained by Falrio. We've also got Veyor, who also fights, and then Nessa kind of fights, even though she is not great at it. I guess, because she lost to Gret. And then also Grima kind of like dabbles in fighting. Nara's kids are too young to be doing any of that. And Rune is also too young to know a lot of offensive magic. So Nara goes to Whitford and is like, hey, do you think Aldi would be willing to, kill some slavers? And Whitford goes, oh, I don't know about that, because Aldi doesn't really like war. And he explains that when he found Aldi, she was injured, and that's because she actually deserted and fled from a war that was happening in the eastern continent that's across the sea. I don't think she's gonna want to fight. So Nara's like, okay, that's fine. I think maybe we'll be fine with Auntie Alice's magic. And so battle begins. Alice is staying in the back because she's not that brave. I don't blame her. She is like almost 60 at this point. I would also be chilling in the back lines. And she's just like chucking fireballs from the safety of the back lines, and they're kind of losing. Nara is starting to get a little worried. And then suddenly Aldi comes flying and kills all the slavers. Nara goes up to Whitford and is like, hey, I thought you said that Aldi didn't want to fight. And he's like, I guess she wanted to defend our new home. And Nara is like, aw, thank you, Aldi. And I'm over here feeling the same thing because, man, Aldi's the first dragon. I have a very soft spot for her in my heart. There's even more stuff in the future about Aldi, okay? Unfortunately, we won't be getting to that in this video. Maybe part 2 or part 3, who knows? Also, Potato is living here and that's Aldi's kid, so she very much wants to protect him. I forgot to mention this. Nessa was in the front lines of that battle defending the city. We've already established that she is not as great of a fighter as she thinks she is. And well, she dies. R.I.P. Nessa. Some people whisper, though, that Gret maybe killed her, but I cannot confirm or deny. To give her some credit, I do think Nessa tried her best to be a strong person, but she got Neralia's awful constitution, so her body isn't as strong as she would like it to be. Before we fully move on to the next generation, when she was alive, Nessa got married to some insignificant dude and had a daughter named Darcy. Well, Darcy also inherited the bad constitution from her. Grima is living her best life with her boo Ken, and they go 10 years of marriage childless. All of a sudden, at 40 years old, Grima pops one out, and she names him Gertrand. Eventually, this guy gets married to Alyssa Gilgaron over at the Far Isle. Some time passes. Nara's kids are grown now. Mal is boring. Chip, as the only son of Queen Nara and King Whitford, was not a friendly person. Really weird, considering who his parents were. They're pretty nice people. Whitford is known to be very kind, and we all know how Nara is. Most of that was lost with Chip, though. While he showed a lot of kindness to Potato the dragon, he did not like showing kindness to other humans. Nara eventually betrothed him to Lillian to maybe mingle some of that magical blood that might be hiding in Lillian with her own bloodline. Chip, though, complains. No, I don't want to marry Lillian. She's so boring and shy. It repulses me. He complains to his mommy, and she breaks the engagement because he's a spoiled little brat. Lillian was mortified upon learning that Nara wanted her to marry Chip. She hates the attention, just like Arma, and she would have been miserable being Chip's wife. So she's relieved when he says he doesn't want her. She's like, yes. And then she goes to Arma and tells her all the hot goss. I guess since we're on Lillian right now, I'll say a little bit more about her. So growing up, Lillian had some fluctuating opinions about Nessa. Her auntie, I guess, technically they're like cousin something removed or second cousin or whatever it's called. I'm Filipino, so I just call my parents cousin, my aunt and uncles, and then I call my cousins children, my niece and nephews, even though I think that's wrong. But hey, culture. Anyway, Lillian is like, do I hate Nessa or is she actually a nice person? Because remember, her mom is Gret. Hearing all this trash talking about Nessa, she didn't really know what to believe. And of course, as a child, you're like naturally going to gravitate towards what your parents say. What doesn't help is that she gets relentlessly bullied by Nessa's daughter, Darcy. She would tell Lillian, the seed of violence grows strong. You're Gret Nightwillow's daughter, so you're gonna grow up and be evil and violent just like her. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Like, stuff like that. Don't know why Darcy sounds like that. She says it so much to Lillian that Lillian starts to get a little scared because she's starting to believe it. She's like, am I going to turn into an awful, terrible person? Luckily, she doesn't. As she grew up, she finds out that her mother is also like not that great. So when she was born, remember, everyone in the family was like, boo, boo, Lillian, because she was not a magical baby. So Lillian internalizes a lot of that. She's like, I'm the disappointment, unlike my sister who has innate magic. Dang, I wish I could do magic. And eventually she gets out of that, insecurity that her family has caused. And she's like, you know what? I'm gonna prove to these bitches that I can do some magic. She starts studying. She starts to read through Great Grandma Neralia's grimoires, okay, like the originals. And she begins to learn magic and she becomes pretty much a D&D wizard. For someone who started out as a disappointment of the family, she ends up making history as the first learned mage of the grimoires. So good on Lillian. I'm pretty happy she didn't marry Chip. Instead, Chip marries a local girl named Betha. Now Vitale's kids, man, they are messy. Even though Chip is her favorite, Nara loves her kids. She really tries to pay attention to them as much as she can, just like her siblings before. I mean, she really had to step up and be the head of this family. Unfortunately, she cannot be a perfect person. And so her kids are still running around doing some shenanigans. Let's talk about Deacon, King Vitale's only son. Surprisingly, even though he's generally an irritating bully, he actually became friends with Lillian. No clue what they bonded over. Really can't think of anything, but that's what the game said. He's a playboy, he sleeps around with anybody and everybody. I guess instead of being bisexual, he's more pansexual, because at the end of the day, Deacon really doesn't care who you are. He'll sleep with you. So Deacon would eventually go to the High Pass to do the Grimoire tradition of plucking out a spouse. Because his dad, King Vitale, is like, okay, Deacon, get your shit together. You can sleep around and stuff, but you're a prince now. Start making babies. Instead of picking a noble, or really any commoner, Deacon specifically chose a prostitute from a Zelmane brothel. Her name is Vela. Why? Because he thought it was a funny little joke. Deacon is so unserious. He's a little irritating. So he tells Vela, oh, I'm gonna change your life. I'm gonna change it for the better. And Vela is like, down skis, right? Because why wouldn't she? She's gonna go be married to a prince, but she's worried that they're gonna hate the fact that she used to be a prostitute. Deacon's like, no, it's okay, you'll be fine. He brings her to court, presents her to his mother, the queen, and he says, we met at the market, and I just fell in love with her. So he lies, and Nara believes it. Vela is gagged. She feels super betrayed and lied to, and she feels like a joke. He brought me over here because he thought it would be funny that there's a former prostitute right under all their noses and they don't know. And she feels very disrespected because Deacon is a dick. Also, Nara, I know she's nice and all, but I do feel that she just has too much faith in other people. Why would she believe that? I think King Vitale next to her can tell that Deacon is being Deacon, but he doesn't say anything because he's just glad that Deacon actually found someone to marry. So obviously, Nara's like, okay, you can marry her. Instantly, the novelty of, haha, I'm married to a prostitute wears off, and Deacon gets bored of Vela. Few years go by. Vela has recovered from Deacon's initial disrespect, and she is making the most out of her life. She keeps her origins a secret and ingrains herself into court life. Other people find her to be delightful, but she has trust issues, so she's very quick to judge others, and she ensures that she picks and chooses who she gets close to. Because of Deacon and Lillian's friendship, Vela finds herself in close proximity to Lillian, and they become friends too. They become such close friends that Lillian ends up being the only person that Vela tells about her real backstory. Meanwhile, Vitale has been watching Deacon very closely because he's been waiting on those bebés. But it's been years now, and their marriage is still childless. So Vitale goes up to his son, asking him, why the hell did you marry Vela if you weren't going to sleep with her and have a family? And I guess the scolding worked because Vela, after 9 years of marriage, finally gives birth to a healthy baby girl named Ayla. Yes, that's correct. I just took out a single letter because I needed to keep track of who her mom was. There are simply too many babies at this point. I needed the help. Deacon thinks that should be enough to get my dad off my back. And then he starts to have some wandering eyes. I mean, he's been already for the last 9 years cheating on her. Of course, he wasn't loyal to Vela, but this time he's got the hots for Chip's wife, Betha. Queen Nara notices what Deacon is up to. She confronts her son and says, I know I tolerate a lot from you, but you cannot be messing around with your brother's wife. Deacon hits her with, it's too late, mother. Nara is like, oh shit, because Betha is currently pregnant. Nara is stressed. She knows that Chip cannot find out and is hoping that when this kid comes out, they look a lot like Betha and he won't notice it's not his. Nara goes to Vitale and tells him what's up. Vitale confronts his son once more and he's like, dude, you're supposed to be having kids with your wife, not your brother's wife. And we all know that Chip's got some violence in his eyes. He's got that Gret Night Willow thing in him. I don't know. Oh my god, what am I saying? This video is too long. Anyway, everyone's nervous. Newborn baby comes out, gets past the ugly phase, and Chip hits the bonus action and goes into a rage because he can tell it looks like Deacon. Now Chip, not one to show kindness to humans, Chip. He's like, how dare you touch my wife? He challenges Deacon to a duel. And y'all, Chip can fight. Here are their stats in game. I wonder who will win. Deacon has maybe touched a sword once in his life. He accepts the duel because we all know how much Deacon loves attention. His plan is to entertain his brother's sword fight for 2 swings or something, just enough to make a show, and then he's gonna yield. So no one can say that he backed out of the duel or that he was too scared to do it. After Chip makes his challenge, everyone is looking to Queen Nara. Are you really gonna let this happen? Let's remember what happened last time there was a duel. Gret messed up Nessa's face, very badly. But Nara remembers that duel did end whatever it was between Nessa and Gret. And she knows that she needs to appease Chip, so she lets it happen. Chip takes his sword Arcane that Nara gave to him, and he shows up at the duel. Deacon is there with a rinky-dink sword. It all goes according to plan. Deacon entertains as many swings as it takes to make a show out of everything, and then he starts to yield. But Chip attacks again, and he attacks, and he attacks, and he attacks. And Deacon is like, I yield, I yield. But Chip was merciless. And he was like, you will never touch my wife again. And Queen Nara watched in horror as her favorite child killed his own brother In my imagination, the scream that she scrumped was very akin to the one heard in Game of Thrones Season 4, Episode 8, The Mountain and the Viper. If you know, you know. And to top it all off, Chip takes his sword out of his brother and is like, from now on, this sword will be called Deacon's Blood. And then he like licks the blood off of the sword. No, he doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. That's too much. Pretty much signaling to everybody, like, don't mess with me, y'all. Do not mess with me. Everyone is gagged. Whitford is consoling Nara. Cause even though Chip is her favorite child, she still loved her other kids, okay? It's just that she loved Chip more, but probably not anymore. Of course, Betha is like, oh my god. And then Vela is like, my husband is dead. Lillian is upset too, cause Deacon was her friend. Arletta is like, I always knew Chip had it in him. I don't even know where that came from. Who knew Arletta had some fighting words in her? Arma is mortified, but she wasn't that close to Deacon because he bullied her, so she doesn't care that much. Vitale, his only son just died, but he shrugs it off. He honestly did not care that much about Deacon. He thought Deacon was a sloppy man who brought a wife to court, made a huge show out of it, only to not bed her for like 9 years. And when people asked him how he felt about it, he just claims that maybe Chip had a point. Deacon was foolish for taking his own brother's wife as his lover. And he says maybe he should have taken a man instead for a lover, because then you don't have to worry about any pregnancies. And he's pretty much of the opinion that Deacon should have listened to him and maybe he would still be alive. Nara is devastated. She doesn't know what to do. Chip is a kinslayer now. Is Nara really gonna, I don't know, imprison or execute her favorite child? Like, no, she's not gonna do that. And in typical Nara fashion, she lets him get away with it, which is crazy. Like, he killed your other son and you're not gonna do anything about it? I mean, I guess, like, I get it, because Chip has a dragon for a best friend, and I would be scared of pissing Potato off too. Now, the baby that Deacon had with Betha, they named him Cain, but Cain was not a healthy baby. Shortly after Deacon's death, Cain did not survive infancy. Some people say it was because of his parents' sins. Now, if you thought that the mess was over, you are sorely mistaken, because in comes Arletta. Arletta marries a man named Jaro. They have some kids. A few years pass. Remember how I said that it did something to her, seeing that her dad was sleeping around and it was seen as okay because mommy gave him permission. Arletta over here starts sleeping, having an affair with none other than Athan. You guys thought that Gret Nightwillow's beef with the family was over? No. Remember how after Gret and Nessa dueled, Athan went up to Gret and was like, I'm done with you. Like, I'm sick of you. Well, I guess he really meant it, because instead, years later, he starts sleeping with Arletta. Since he couldn't smash Nara, he did her daughter instead. And they almost got away with it too, if it wasn't for the fact that Arletta gave birth to a girl who very obviously had Athan's hair color. Her name is Aruna. Chip hears about this and he's like, oh my god, like, we got so many cheaters in the family. And his hatred of infidelity boils over to Arletta. And over dinner, he chastises her for having an affair. And he says, you're just the same as your dead brother. And Arletta actually cared about Deacon a little bit. So she gets pissed and she grabs a knife and she threatens him with it. She's like holding it up to him, and Chip starts laughing because he's like, you're not going to do anything to me with that. But Arletta says, careful, Chip. My blade may stand no chance next to yours, but you're not safe from the shadows. Cause guess what? Your wife, Betha, has another affair with another man. And she like drops that bomb on Chip. Everyone is gagged and Arletta gets away scot-free because Chip now wants to divorce Betha. To add on to the mess, when Betha was exposed by Arletta, Vela, the late deacon's wife, she was like, oh, I'm not surprised. And then Betha heard this and she took this as an insult. And one day when Vela was out in the gardens, Betha assaults her and they have like a little cat fight where they like scratch each other with their nails. After that, Vela decides that she's going to mind her own business and take care of her child without getting into any further drama. Vitale is honestly so sick of his children. He is once again disappointed in his child for having an affair. So you might be wondering, out of the shenanigans of Vitale's children, where does Arma fall into all of this? Well, she is actually the one who kind of had a good life. I mean, her childhood was terrible because, apparently knives fell from the sky or something and slashed her face up. And she was bullied, but she lived a relatively peaceful adolescence under Alice's tutelage. And she was like friends with Lillian. Now Lillian knows magic too, which like Arma is a little, she's not that big of a fan of magic, but she's happy for Lillian that Lillian has found value in herself. So Arma's just chilling. She kind of hides away from attention most of the time. She doesn't attend any of the feasts. She kind of just eats by herself in the privacy of somewhere else. So she's not there when Arletta and Chip fought. And, she's just minding her own business. There's this guy, a young man named Arthur, who moved from Silverwick to join the court of Elra. He was handsome, very popular among the young women of the court. Arma's just there, she's the princess. And Arthur's like super popular. He's talking to a lot of people, but he takes notice of Arma and he sees that she's trying her best to stick to the shadows and really tries her best to keep away from the crowds. She often stayed in her room, preferring peace and quiet, staying away from the messy antics of her siblings. Arthur would notice her whenever she was present, and it was just kind of like that cute little thing where he was always aware of her presence in the room. But he wouldn't make any attempts to include her in conversations because he can tell that she doesn't really want to be a part of it. And Arma, she notices Arthur too. Like, she thinks that he's cute. He's quite beautiful, actually. But she told herself that, oh, this guy would never look at me. I have an eye patch. They call me Arma the Black. I'm like the Grim Reaper or something to everyone else. So she kind of like gives up on that. But one day, Arma was walking in the gardens alone, and she sits at a bench to watch the ocean from afar. And she takes her little eye patch off to have a full view. Arthur sees her there and she gets a little scared and she's like about to run away. But he's like, no, wait, please stay. I've always wanted to speak to you, but you always seem so distant. It seemed like you didn't want to take part in any of my conversations. So I just assumed you didn't want to talk to me, but I was too scared to test it. She tells him that he's actually right, that she's had no desire to partake in any conversations at court. And she explains that she could always feel everyone staring at her and that she can tell they aren't paying attention to what she's saying and only how she looks. And so she's like, I choose to be unseen instead. And Arthur's like, well, that sounds like a really sad way of living. Aren't you lonely? And she's like, well, of course I am. But she says there's no one she wants to befriend in court. And Arthur is like, even me? And he starts joking around and then he makes her laugh. And so they start a courtship. It's very slow. It's a very private one. Almost no one knows about it. Nara, for the longest time, thought that Arma was too afraid of marriage. So she set her aside like Ornella, and she wasn't going to force her into anything. But suddenly, it comes as a major surprise when Arma approaches her mother to ask her permission to marry Arthur. And Nara asks her, is this really what you want? Are you sure? Arma hits her with the, yes, Mom. He's the only person I don't feel afraid with. which is huge for Arma because that's her whole thing, is that she is so afraid of everything in the world. And I feel like her saying that she feels safe and that when she's with him, she doesn't feel afraid, it kind of says a lot more than being like, oh, I love him. Anyway, Arma and Arthur are quietly married and they have a very sweet and tender romance and they have so many children together and I love them. They are my favorite couple. Arma escaped Vitale's attention for most of her youth because just like Nara, Vitale thought that Arma was refusing marriage. He thought that it was really annoying that she was a big coward. He only began paying attention to Arma once she got married and she started, popping out a bunch of kids. Only then did he start respecting her. I mean, this guy's really not a good dad, but he realizes his other children were fools. And it was in Arma that his legacy would live on. Let's go back for a final time to Queen Nara. A lot has happened in her life. A lot of good, some war, and some tragedies. Her kids were extremely messy, so were her siblings. And she is a very high cortisol person. In her old age, like her grandmother and mother before her, Nara feels the call of the Great Ruins. She feels this magical pull to it or whatever, right? She can't resist it. Once he is made aware that this is a thing that's happening, Whitford does a very similar thing that Agathon the Barkeep did with Rana. He tells her, please don't leave. Don't leave your family. Don't leave me. But just like Rana, Nara was not convinced. This thing, it gnawed at her. At this moment in time, she was also starting to get dreams about the Great Ruins. And it was almost like a consequence of how long she had been resisting it. So, despite Whitford's love and begging, even Chip was like, don't go. Nara still went. She wasn't by herself, though. She went with a group of people. She was gone for a month. Kind of crazy. Some people say that they saw Whitford ride on Aldi all around the coast of the ruins to find her every day that she was gone. This tale has been spun so much that no one knows if Whitford really did ride out every single day. But what everyone knows for sure is that the day she came back, Whitford flew out on Aldi to the docks, and then he got off and he ran to his wife in tears and he welcomed her in an embrace. And then people say Whitford was doing all of this extra stuff, all while Vitale rode down in a carriage. Because he doesn't have a dragon friend to fly down to the docks very quickly. And Vitale was also very happy that Nara made it out. I don't know what she saw there. Don't know why they have this compulsion to go to the Great Ruins. But hey, she survived. Unfortunately, we come to the very sad part of people growing old and dying. King Whitford dies at 62 years old. And when he does, Aldi is seen flying into the distance, like she leaves Elra. The only time that Aldi ever comes back to the island is to visit her kids, who a bunch of them hatched at this point, but I haven't talked about them. After his death, Queen Nara is so sad. She is holding on for months. She starts to seclude herself. And so much family drama is happening, and she has grown sick of it. She regrets ever allowing Chip and Deacon to duel. She's regretting a lot in her life and how much she let people get away with things. So she secludes herself in her room. She refuses to see anyone, and she even abdicates the throne so that Mal can rule as king already. So Mal's reign begins even before Nara dies. But one day, they go to check in on her, and they find her in her bed, and she is holding, in fetal position, hugging one of Whitford's favorite cloaks. And man, it's just sad. It's sad. But that is the end of Queen Nara's life. R.I.P. Nara. I'm gonna briefly go over Mal, because now he is king. And I say briefly because I will go into everything that he does in his life in part 2. So Mal was the only one to stand with Arletta during her affair with Athan. Ornella was very much like, you were stupid for doing that because you saw what happened to Deacon. But for some reason, Mal was like, oh, I'm on her side. Why though? I don't know. Speaking of Ornella, there will also be more about her in part 2. He's also the first king to not participate in polygamy. And in fact, he stopped the tradition altogether. And he claims the family will grow large enough to not need marriages between brother and sister to keep the blood pure, okay? And he's like, we will find another way. Very early into his reign, King Mal, for some reason, invites Odveth and his elven wifey to a feast in the Grim. It's the first time Odveth has been back ever since he left to marry her. And he's very like, oh, I'm hot shit. Because by now, he's actually a king. Because the elven princess that he married naturally became queen, and he's her consort. So everyone is there at the feast. Odveth is eating up all this attention. And he is so happy because he finds out that all his siblings are dead and he outlived all of them. Then Gertrand, Grima's son, is sitting there with his wife Alyssa Gilgaron, and they're like, whoa, that's my uncle, my half-uncle. And then Alyssa, she's looking at Odveth's elven queen, and she goes, her nose, it's kind of big. Everyone is gagged because she said it a little too loud. The queen hears it, immediately throws a BF, and challenges Alyssa to a duel. Gertrand is shitting his pants because he and Alyssa are young. They're like 18. They're stupid. Alyssa knows she screwed up bad, and now she's in a duel with a queen. This queen is very aggressive. But Alyssa wants to live, and she kills her. Odveth's wife, Miss Elven Queen, dies. Everyone is like, oh shit, what just happened? Because I think the plan was, Alyssa Gilgaron is going to be the sacrificial lamb in order to appease this queen because she called her nose big. She wasn't supposed to kill the queen. Odveth is pissed, to say the least, but he doesn't do anything yet. He gets up. But before he leaves, he's like, you'll regret this. Except he was like 64. So he was like, you'll regret this. Or something like that. Gonna leave you guys with that. If you made it this far, I applaud you. I really do. Any thoughts you have about any of these characters? Who do you hate? Who do you like? Who do you love? Please let me know. I will read every single comment because this is my current passion project and I genuinely don't know who the audience for this is. So if you liked it, let me know. I will be working on part 2 and hopefully that doesn't take forever. Hopefully I actually do it. Anyway, y'all, little reminder that I just released a summer sticker bundle. So if you like that, go and grab it. I will see you all next time. Goodbye.